Hey everyone, sorry we're a little bit late, a bit of technical difficulties.
Hi everybody, thank you for joining. This is our second Instagram Live. And today we actually have a really cool topic that we're going to discuss. Thanks to you. You've all requested that this week we cover the most underrepresented FemTech topics. And we thought that we should bring Terry to talk about this, because Terry is our head of media. And Terry has her hand on the pulse when it comes to trends and what's happening in FemTech. So we thought there would be no better person to give us an insight on what's actually being underrepresented in the space. So Terry, tell us, what are the topics that deserve more spotlight?
It's a really good question. So as head of media at FemTech Live, I get to interview a lot of different startups. I get to meet the baby startups in the space and the big startups as well. I think there's kind of four really underrepresented topics. I definitely think the first one is FemTech kind of solutions for people in the developing world. So you'll know from FemTech Lab, one of our amazing startups are at Raj, and now Girly Things as well, both based in Pakistan. They're kind of looking at tech solutions that can support women and girls, especially in terms of women's health, through FemTech. And I think that there's great solutions out there for the developing world as well.
Yeah, and all these emerging that these emerging markets are actually a massive opportunity as well. So it's actually good for investors to keep in mind that these underrepresented markets are actually, there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, and definitely a lot of potential to make a bigger impact, because often the health outcomes are worse in those spaces. So bringing tech in can have a huge impact on the lives of women and girls, which is exciting.
What else?
What else? It's a really good question. I think I'll also talk a little bit about FemTech for people of colour. So unfortunately there's not a lot of founders in the FemTech space that are women of colour, but there's also not a lot of solutions. So we know that black women are 4 times more likely to die in childbirth, which is a huge statistic, and yet there isn't a lot of solutions within the FemTech space which are specifically focusing kind of on their needs and how to support them in those kind of in those ways. And also I think there's a lot of cultural differences as well for many communities. So South Asian women will kind of deal with sexual taboo and menstrual taboo in very different ways, and often FemTech solutions don't look at that. They're very much for a kind of white middle class audience. So I think that's a really underrepresented space.
Yeah, that is such an important topic, because I think Saba from Al Raj, hi Saba, I think you're there, had an amazing LinkedIn post one time saying that, look, we're not making a real impact until it's not just in the Western world, but it's also in these
Definitely, and it's very different. So I think that's a really exciting and key space, and I'm looking forward to seeing more founders who are people of colour coming through.
Amazing. What about if we sort of shift gears and think about innovation in science and women's health, and the fact that that has been lagging behind for quite a while? How do you think that impacts some areas that are underrepresented in FemTech?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So we know that the gender data gap, not just in terms of medical solutions, but also in terms of science as well, is huge. That means there's such a lack of data. So I think things for chronic pain conditions are massive. So if we think about things like polycystic ovary syndrome or endometriosis, thyroid conditions as well, all of those things, because there's not a lot of data or a lot of research into women's bodies, means that startups and entrepreneurs just aren't able to get into this space yet. There are some incredible things happening, but those big chronic conditions just aren't being looked at the moment.
The other one I was thinking about is autoimmune diseases like MS, and how disproportionate women are affected by them, and how treatments can be actually more effective if you look at hormone and cycle care, and because there's not enough research, there's not enough entrepreneurship as well. So
definitely, I think there's a little bit going on there. There's an amazing company called Menstrual Matters, which are doing exactly this. They're looking at the effects of the menstrual cycle on different immune conditions like MS, epilepsy, asthma, and the data that's coming out of that is so important, and hopefully we'll push some new startups out there to kind of create some new solutions in FemTech.
Incredible. All right, one more. Let's think of one more but maybe something quirky, something people haven't thought about.
Okay, so I think a lot of people think about LGBTQ people in this space and how their sexual wellness is often not really taken on board or thought about in terms of FemTech solutions. But something I've been talking a lot about recently is how the older population, so I'm talking 60 plus people, are actually really affected by the lack of solutions, especially FemTech solutions in terms of sexual wellness. So we know that from big data surveys, especially in the UK, that the elderly population in care homes, I think people might find this quite amusing, but are actually kind of the biggest contributors to STI statistics.
Wow.
Yeah. If you think about it, the kind of barriers that exist to not wanting to have sex almost go when you're older, and so there's a lot to be done there. There's a lot of solutions that could really support people. We also know that post-menopause and issues with kind of sexual desire and also lubrication can be an issue for a lot of women. That's not spoken about a lot, and something that could be really tackled. And my last thing I would say about the older population is that as women get older, they're more susceptible to UTIs. Completely under-researched, nobody has any knowledge why. But as an older person, if you contract a UTI, it can actually be fatal, and it can cause early onset dementia as well. So I think thinking about older people's sexual wellness is really, really important.
And it's a growing demographic, right? The older population is the growing demographic in the world right now, and they can afford a lot of solutions. So it's again an opportunity for entrepreneurs, and that's so. I mean, you know, it's funny because it's unexpected, but it's quite interesting and unfortunate that it's not represented.
Exactly. Yeah. I think you don't stop having sexual desire the older you get. So let's ensure that those people are doing it safely.
Amazing. Terry, incredible. Do you have any questions in the chat? Anything at all that people are interested in? Hope everyone enjoyed this as much as I did. Thank you so much. I'm so happy we brought you in to talk about this.
And hope to see you next time.
See you.